So thanks everyone for joining me. I get this question all the time in my inbox. And so I just wanted to come on here and share with you all my personal experience with biologics and also all of the other medications that I've been on in the past. Because if I'm being honest, I've been diagnosed for 13 years and a lot has come out on the market, thankfully, when it comes to medications that are available for IBD and ulcerative colitis specifically. So it's actually really amazing to see what's what's come available for us since 2008. So I'm just going to hop right in. So when I was first diagnosed in 2008, I was given Lialda, and I was given 3 pills of Lialda, and it's very mild. My experience with Lialda was very mild. It um, I didn't experience any side effects. I didn't experience fatigue, but also I was newly diagnosed and I didn't know what was up from down. And so my diet also wasn't on track. And so I kept getting sick while on Lialda, but I think personal preference, I don't think it was the Lialda that kept me getting sick. It was my diet. And so because I kept getting sicker and sicker, they then kept me on Lialda, which isn't a biologic, and then they started me on Imuran. So if you've ever been on Imuran, please let me know. I'm so curious. So if you're watching this and you've been on Imuran, please comment, because Imuran by far was my worst experience on a medication, and thank God I am no longer on that medication. Um, it helped me get better. So the pros of Imuran is that it helped me to get better and recover and go back into remission. The huge con is that I lived in severe brain fog for I don't know, for years, for like 6 years. I took 3 pills of Imuran and 3 pills of Lialda every day for like 6 or 7 years. And I walked through life in a constant brain fog. The only thing I can think of is that everything was just really cloudy and foggy for a very long time. I was constantly fatigued, and I don't know how I managed to do the things that I did in that time period, because I was in college at that time. I was a young professional at that time. I was a distance runner then. Like the things that I did, like it was crazy. So thankfully I came off of Imuran, got my energy back. I felt like a new woman coming off of that. And so then I started exploring the world, or so then I was put on Humera rather than, let's see, I was put on Humera, my very first biologic, a few years after I was diagnosed. And so my experience with Humera was the first biologic. I might be wrong on this, so don't quote me, but I think Humera was the very first biologic that was available on the market. So when I had it, it was very cutting edge and very exciting, because I didn't have to, hi Juan, because I didn't have to take pills. I mean, as a young 20 something, I could never remember to take pills. And so I was actually really excited to be able to take a shot that I only had to take, I think this was every 2 weeks. So overall, my experience with Humera, fairly positive. I had very minimal side effects. I was a little fatigued. You know, when you have chronic illness or an autoimmune disease, it's really hard to tell the difference of where that fatigue is coming from. And I'm just being completely honest. I don't know if it was the active disease or if it was the Humera that was causing my fatigue. But while I was on Humera, I was a little bit fatigued. Not nearly as much as when I was on Imuran, but it was fairly significant. Also, the Humera that I was on was I want to say the painful version. So they now have a version of Humera that's citrate free, which means essentially pain free. So the original version so I had the injection where it's kind of like an EpiPen, where it's like a long plastic tube and you like stick it on your skin and then you push it down and then it injects. And it's not a syringe that you typically see doctors and nurses using. So I was able to inject it myself every 2 weeks, and it was painful. I won't lie to you, it was painful because I didn't have the citrate-free version. However, I managed that pain because I would take an ice pack, and I would warm up the Humera. I would take it out of the fridge, let it sit there for about 10 minutes while I put an ice pack on the injection site, and I would numb the skin, and then I would inject. And that's how I did Humera. And I was on Humera for I think two or three different times. They kept putting me back on Humera. They would try something else. They would put me back on Humera, where I would go off medication altogether. They would put me back on Humera. So overall, Humera worked for me for a long time, off and on. And I even was able to take it to Spain with me when I studied abroad. And I carried it on with a tiny little, one of the tiny little lunch boxes, and I just kept filling it with ice. And it was such a long flight. In a layover, I went to like a McDonald's to refill the ice in case it melted. So you learn these hacks when you become chronically ill for 13 years. And so I was able to manage to carry Humera with me to study abroad. And I think that's amazing. And so it worked for me until it didn't. That's just the progression sometimes. And I don't blame myself. I don't blame the drug. Sometimes your body just becomes resistant to a specific medication and you need to switch to something else. And thankfully, when I did that, by the time my body became resistant to that and kind of stopped working, there were several more options available. So Humera wasn't the last stop, thankfully. Again, I'm so thankful for the way that technology and that the medications have become available to the market. So the next drug, it stopped working. When I'm saying that Humera stopped working, that was about 1.5 years ago when I became inflamed the way that I am still currently in that flare up, just less severely. And so the last 1.5 years, we've been trying a lot of different biologics to see which one would work best for me. So after Humera, they put me on Entyvio, and my doctor and I sat down. She was awesome. She talked through all of the side effects, all the symptoms, like how fast it would work, like compared to all the other ones. So she laid out all of the options for me and gave me her case for why we should start on which one. So we went from Humera to Entyvio. Okay, so Entyvio takes a little bit longer to kick in, and I was very, very sick at this time. So hearing that it takes, oh my gosh, like it would sometimes take up to 3 months for it to kick in. I was like, oh my gosh, okay, whatever, let's just do it. I'm gonna be sick anyway. Let's just try it. So then we started Entyvio, and it took an IV induction, which means I needed a large amount to get my body kind of jump started on Entyvio. So I had to go into an infusion center and sit for, I think it was 2 to 3 hours to get the IV induction, and then go back later and get another induction. And it's been about 1 year, so I don't remember the exact procedure, but I do know that I had to, there was an induction period where my body needed to get used to being on Entyvio, and then it was every 8 weeks. And so by month 3, we knew that there were no changes. So I never saw an improvement in my symptoms, unfortunately, and we knew that we needed to switch. So it wasn't due, again, it wasn't anything that I did. It wasn't anything that Entyvio did. It's just our bodies are all, oh, thank you. Thank you. There are 3 loading doses for Entyvio. Yes. And then after that, it's every 8 weeks. And it is an IV. You have to go in and get an IV, but it only takes about 1 to 2 hours. And I will say with Entyvio, I never had any side effects. I felt fine. I would even take my laptop into the infusion center and either do work or watch a show on Netflix. And it was a very painless 30 minutes infusions. Wow. Okay. Yours was fast. Mine definitely took, I was in there for about an hour to an hour and a half. Um, and so, yeah, it's a very painless experience. And I didn't have any symptoms personally with Entyvio. It just didn't work for me. And so we then switched to Zeljans. And again, Zeljans isn't, it's a different type of drug. It's not a biologic. And so Zeljans is actually a pill. And the good news with Zeljans is that it's much faster acting than Entyvio or Stelara or Humera for that matter. It actually you're supposed to, if it's going to work, it's going to start working within a week, which is kind of crazy to me that one can take up to 3 months and the other one can take up to a week. So I was really, really excited and really hopeful for switching to Zeljans because I'm like, yes, we are getting some progress. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. And to be honest, I did. I got hi Dinesh. So I got results within that week. Like within 5 days, I felt so much better. So much better. I felt like a new woman. This was before the pandemic, so I was able to go, I went to an event and I was able to walk there, which is kind of crazy because I wasn't able to leave my house before. I really saw the results immediately. I know. Thanks, Carissa. And so and I hate to bring this down, but after a week, it stopped working. So I felt great for like 3 days and then it stopped working and um, and it never worked again. So I stayed on it again for a couple of months just to make sure and just to check to see if things would improve. And they didn't. And so